Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Katie Sampson. I'm the Associate Director of Student and Young Alumni Engagement for Temple University. Before we get started, I'd like to share just some general Zoom housekeeping notes. So this session will be recorded and will be added to the resource section of the OWL Network platform. And will also be linked on the TUYA event page. So that's alumni.temple.edu/TUYA. I'll also send a follow-up email to all registrants with the recording and the slide deck for your reference. If you have any questions for today's presenter throughout the session, please feel free to add them in the Q&A box, and we'll be sure to address them at the end of our session during the Q&A portion. Today's session is brought to you through the Beyond Broad program. So as part of the larger Temple University Young Alumni Association, Beyond Broad was established specifically to target the class of 2020. So this program includes a variety of exclusive programs, events, and resources for this class to stay connected to Temple and to provide additional support for the transition from student to young professional. You can learn more about the program at alumni.temple.edu/beyondbroad. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's session presenter, Mark Coloco. Mark is the Senior Career Coach at the Temple University Career Center. He has been working in career development for over 9 years, helping students and alumni discern their career paths. Mark also has a lot of personal experience with graduate school. In 2012, he completed his Master of Education in Counseling Psychology from Temple's College of Education, and currently he is a doctoral candidate in Temple's higher education program. Mark loves helping people identify their career passions, and he's excited to connect with you. And I couldn't think of a better person to provide the content to you today. So with that, Mark, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Katie. And I'm definitely glad to be here with everyone on the call to be talking about graduate school today. And I think that this is a really important and valuable topic, and I'm glad that you've decided to log on. I really hope that this presentation will be valuable to you if you are in that process right now of really getting ready and preparing for graduate school. But maybe you are just trying to figure out whether or not graduate school is the right option for you. And I hope that this presentation will also be valuable. Just want to reiterate that we definitely welcome questions throughout. So you can put questions through the chat. And I think Katie and I will kind of work together to see if we can answer some of those questions as we kind of go along through the presentation. But then at the end of the presentation, we will have some time just for Q&A, just to ask individual specific questions. So if something's not covered during the presentation, know that there will be some time towards the end to be able to dialogue about that. But yes, I am the Senior Career Coach at the Temple University Career Center. So at the University-wide Career Center at Temple, I work specifically with graduate students as well as undergraduate students who are considering graduate school. And I've been doing that for a number of years now and really think a lot about the graduate school process, and I'm excited to share this kind of information and content with you. So we're titling this presentation, Applying to Graduate School, the Roadmap for Success. So hopefully I'll be able to give you some different tips that can help you out with this graduate school process. So wanted to break up this conversation into 4 parts. So these are 4 different steps, 4 different tips that I think you should keep in mind if you are thinking about graduate school. So the first one is you want to clarify your motivations, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. It's really important to know why you want to go to graduate school. It is, no matter if you're doing a master's or a doctoral program, it is a considerable amount of time and it's an investment. And so you want to make sure that you are making a strong investment and that you have that extra push, that energy to drive you throughout your graduate program. So you want to know why you want to go to graduate school. Then you also want to make sure you research your options. You need to research what's the best program type for you. You need to research what's the best school for you. You might even want to research how are you going to fund or pay for graduate school. So you want to do some research as well. Also, you want to make sure that you prepare your application materials. So there are a set number of materials that you need for almost any graduate school program. So it's also important to make sure that you have an awareness of what those different materials are and that you are starting to create them and get them ready. And then graduate school is definitely, the application process can be demanding, it can be exhausting. So it's good to make use of different resources that are out there to assist you with the process. And so I want to give you some resources that are here at Temple University that you can take advantage of. Most of them are free resources that you can use. And that's going to be able to assist you with being able to kind of complete this application process. So we want to break this conversation into these 4 different parts. And so we'll go through each one of them right now. So the first one is motivations. And so I was saying that, graduate school is a major investment of time and resources. I think, you might be going to graduate school maybe and working part-time. So let's say you're working part-time while going to graduate school, just balancing your work while also this commitment of school can be a lot. It's also, no matter how you do it, it's a financial commitment. And with the financial commitment that's being made with, just the sacrifices that you have to do to go to graduate school, you really want to consider, what is your motivation? You want it to be founded in something solid. You don't want it to necessarily be a fear-based decision that you're making, but you really want to make sure that you have some good, valid reasons for why you might want to go to graduate school. And so I want to give you some suggestions of just what are some good motivations for going to graduate school. So some motivations that you might want to consider for going to graduate school are to obtain a career goal that requires an advanced degree. So a really good reason to go to graduate school is because to get into a certain profession, you need a graduate degree. So one of my degrees is in counseling psychology, and to become a counselor, you actually need a master's degree in counseling. First, there might be some of you on the call that are interested in law school. And if you want to become a lawyer, you absolutely need a law degree. So there are certain professions that the only way you can get to them is if you have an advanced degree. And that is a good reason, if you want to get into one of those professions, that you go to graduate school. You also might be thinking right now that you want to become more marketable. Maybe you completed a degree in one area and you're looking to make a switch because there might be greater earning potential in another space. I knew a student, a master's student currently, who his bachelor's degree is in linguistics, but then he decided to pursue a master's degree in information science and technology because he knew that that knowledge of data, that ability to work with computers is a very marketable skill and that it would help him with employment. So you might be in a similar situation where you're looking to pivot because you might see there might be greater earning potential in getting another type of degree. You also might just be looking to do a career change. I've met plenty of graduate students who they completed something within the arts, maybe something like music, and then eventually later they might have become very interested in business and wanted to completely change career paths. And so maybe they went and pursued a Master of Business Administration. So you might just have an interest in a completely different other field that the only way for you to gain access into that field is that you need to get some new skills. So you need to make a career change through going to graduate school. But maybe you're like me. And one of my big motivations for wanting to go to graduate school was just because I wanted to learn more. My undergraduate degree is in psychology, and I loved all my classes. I just knew as I was getting done with that degree that I wanted more opportunities to study that material, to study more about different areas in psychology. And so graduate school was something that felt almost like a natural next step. So I think that you can go to graduate school just because you want to learn more about a specific topic. So these are all motivations to consider. They might be really strong, founded kind of reasons for why you might want to go to graduate school. So some questions to ask yourself. Here are some questions that you might want to consider. What factors are motivating me to go to graduate school? I know right now, and it still can be a valid reason. I know right now because of the pandemic, there are a lot of individuals who are thinking, maybe I need to do more schooling. I need to kind of protect myself in that way by going for more school. But I would really say that you want to make sure you explore your different options. There might still be a job opportunity out there that you could pursue. If you are just going to graduate school just because you're afraid of something, that's not always a reason for going, again, because it's a big commitment. I think another question to ask yourself is, what topics am I passionate to learn more about? So maybe there's some type of field, maybe there's some type of question. There's something that you want to get more understanding on. That's a really good reason for going to graduate school. And so maybe you'll ask yourself that question. You also want to think about what kind of graduate programs do you want to pursue? So there's master's, professional degree programs, doctoral degree programs. Do you know what kind of program you might want to pursue? That might help out. And then you can ask yourself, will this pursuit help me advance into a new field? Because you want to be thinking long-term. What is the long-term gain of me going to graduate school? Is it going to help me to advance into some other type of area? So these are just some questions to consider. Maybe you'll write these questions down, reflect on them. That might help you with clarifying some of your motivations when it comes to graduate school. So want to do just a little bit of recap, and we'll be doing this as we kind of go throughout. I want to just hear from you in this poll. What is your motivation for going to graduate school right now? So a poll is going to pop up, and I want you to kind of ask, what do you think your motivation for going to graduate school right now is? And maybe when are you considering that you might go for graduate school? Is it in the next year, or is it a little bit longer from that? All right, so we got some responses coming in, and you can also in the chat, if you want to elaborate at all, you can share there too about your motivations for graduate school, when you're thinking about applying to graduate school. Feel free to throw that in the chat. Okay, so we're seeing some of the responses here. And so a decent number of you are thinking that there is an advanced degree that you want to pursue. Others of you are looking to become more marketable. Yeah, a decent number of everyone on the call is also thinking about they'll be doing that. They'll be applying to graduate school within the next year. So definitely feel free in the chat. I'm curious, if you're trying to become more marketable, what degree path do you think will help you to do that? Also, if you're just going to graduate school because it's required for an advance for a field that you want to go into, feel free to share what that degree is or what that particular program is that you're considering. Let me see here. Okay, someone said I'm getting ready to apply fall 2021. And okay, here I see some TESOL. Okay, so we see there are some individuals who are thinking about doctoral programs too. So we'll be able to talk about these different areas, depending on what degree path. And then if there are questions about how to financially support yourself while applying to graduate school, we'll also talk about that. All right, so let's keep it moving. And so now that we've talked a little bit about your motivations for graduate school, it's now time to research which kind of graduate programs you might want to pursue. So I kind of talked about this a little bit before, but you need to know what program type you're going to be considering. You also need to know what's the best school for you. There are schools all over the country. There are online programs, there are international programs. You need to know what's the best school for you. And then we'll also talk a little bit about how do you research options for paying for graduate school. So we'll now talk about research. So when it comes to researching what type of program you might want to pursue, there are three broad types of graduate school programs. So there are master's programs, professional degree programs, and doctoral degree programs. The first one, master's degree, you could break that into kind of two different parts. So there's academic master's degrees, and then there's professional master's degrees. I kind of talked about professional master's degrees a little bit earlier. So for example, a master's of arts in counseling would be considered a professional master's degree because it's preparing you to go into the profession of counseling. Also, there are degrees like a master of public policy or a master of public health. Those are master's degrees that are preparing you to become a professional in a certain space. But there are also academic master's degrees. So academic master's degrees are like a master of arts in history or a master of arts in criminology or criminal justice. And those kind of master's programs are more for intellectual growth, and they are a prerequisite if you are trying to go into a doctoral program. So if you do a master of arts in criminology, it's strong preparation for if you want to then do a PhD in criminology. The same thing with history. So those are kind of two different types of master's degree. The professional degree is more for advancement or employment within a given field. It's meant to prepare you to go into a certain profession. And then the master degree that's more academic, the specialized academic master's degree is a lot more to prepare you for further study within a doctoral program. Then there are also professional kind of doctoral degrees. So the law degree that I was talking about before, that is a doctoral degree. It's focused specifically in law, but there's some of you might be interested in the health professions, but like a medical doctor trying to get a medical doctoral degree, or maybe you're thinking about a doctor of physical therapy. So there are many different doctoral degrees within the health professions, but all these different professional doctoral degrees, they give you knowledge and skills for practical application within a specific field, but they're more of the doctoral level. So those are professional degrees. And then lastly, there is the PhD, which I like to call the big whammy. And that is usually a much longer time that you'll be spending in school, and you'll kind of complete a program of study, of just kind of learning. But at the end of a PhD program, you will also be contributing a product, a piece of literature to the academic field that you're in. So you'll actually be working on a dissertation, putting that together, and it's supposed to be a contribution of original research within your specific field. So I usually tell people, if you're thinking about a doctoral degree, a PhD, you really want to start with a question. Is there some type of question, some type of area that you want to understand more? And if you want to understand something in greater depth, that is a lot of good motivation for going for a PhD program, because you'll eventually have to try to answer a question like that through your dissertation. So these are the three different types of programs that you might want to consider as you're thinking about graduate school. And I want to give you just a little bit more details and kind of timeline for them. So most master's degrees, they're about 2 to 3 years in length. A doctoral degree, that could be up to 8 years. I think people can complete doctoral degrees in about 5 years, maybe a little bit less, but more like 5, 6, 7, or 8 years it can take for you to complete a doctoral degree. So it's considerably more time. And then our professional degrees here, you see that there are professional degrees in law, medicine, and other health-related fields. So that gives you just a little bit of the details on them, as well as a breakdown with the timeline. So you'll be thinking about what type of degree, what type of degree are you looking for? Also, you want to think about, where can you look for graduate programs? Where can you begin researching how to find them? And I think one of the best ways to start your research process is to look at rankings. And rankings are so important because when you finish your graduate program, whatever it is, you'll be looking for employment. And a lot of employers tend to care about the rankings of schools. So for any given field, the programs that are more highly ranked, it makes it a lot easier for you to find employment. I know people who have graduate degrees from University of Penn, as well as Harvard. I know someone who has his MBA from Harvard, and because it's so highly ranked, he has his pick of what kind of opportunities he might pursue for a job. So you really want to think, what are the rankings of of the different graduate programs that are out there? And you can use this site, US News World Report Grad School Rankings. If you look that up, for most fields, most disciplines, they have a ranking of what are the top schools, what are the most premier schools by field. So you can take a look at the US News World Report Grad School Rankings. You could also look at more general sites like Petersons.com. So Petersons.com is just a graduate school webpage, and it's going to give you, based on your field, based on your interest, what are some different graduate programs that are out there. So that's a more general site that you can use. You could also use professional associations. So for any particular field, there is usually a professional association. It's a group of professionals for that particular field, and they usually make recommendations on graduate programs if you want to become a professional in that field. So in counseling, for example, there are different professional associations that will suggest to you, here are some schools that we actually approve of that would be good if you want to become a professional in this field. I even have met people who were interested in things like athletic training, and if they looked up athletic training professional associations or school directories, they'll get a listing of schools that are recommended by that professional association about for schooling. So one thing you can do as just a very easy search is just on Google. If you type in your field of interest and type in school directories, or just school directories for that particular field, you should be able to see possibly a listing of schools that might be recommended by a professional association, or just they're out there as these are the schools recommended for this particular field. And then lastly, what you can do is you could also just kind of go based on your personal reading. So I really hope, since there are a lot of alums on this call, maybe you've already been kind of curious about a certain field of study, and maybe you've read an article or two. And you might find that some of the articles that you've read are from a certain faculty member, a certain professor. And if you look, whoever wrote that article, they work at a certain institution. And if you like what they wrote about, you might want to consider doing a graduate program at the place where this person is from that did this research or did this article that you really liked. Also, you could ask faculty. So, you could ask some of your former faculty, you could ask them if they're in a specific field that you're considering, what would you recommend in terms of potential schools to go to if I want to go into this field? So you can also ask faculty members that you've had for classes about research, about graduate school options. So these are 4 different ways that you can research programs. Use the rankings from US News World Report. You can go to petersons.com. You can look up school directories, and you can also consult different readings that you've done or ask faculty. You also want to think about, how are you going to pay for graduate school? I know that a lot of people are considering that. I think for most master's degrees, you are going to be doing personal funding. So you're going to have to probably take out some loans to be able to pay for graduate school. For doctoral programs, usually you can get, the school will be paying for you if they decide to bring you on for a doctoral program. But one other option you can consider is working for a university. So if you find a job at a university, the university that you probably want to go to graduate school at, you could actually get tuition remission. A lot of different universities offer that tuition remission if you want to complete a graduate degree. You could also think about your current employer. You could think about your current employer, or you could think about this as you get ready to apply for different jobs that are out there. You might want to ask that employer, do they offer tuition remission for any types of graduate programs? So there are different organizations out there that might be willing to support you. And then you might want to think about testing in. So I know for law school in particular, if your LSAT score is high enough and your GPA is high enough, certain schools will actually offer you certain amounts of scholarship money. They will, help to pay for your graduate school. So you really want to make sure you score highly, very high on your graduate entrance exams, because sometimes certain schools will offer you some money because of how you scored. But if all those options seem like they might not work, you also want to consider scholarship and funding resources. So there are at least 2 resources here at Temple University that you can take advantage of. This Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advising. This is an office here at Temple University that actually assists students and alumni if they are thinking about scholarships or fellowships. So you could actually look up this Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advising, and they will be able to support you or give you some ideas about how to fund graduate school. Also, you could go to Student Financial Services. So if you go to Student Financial Services website here at Temple University, they have a whole listing of different ways that you can pay for graduate school. So there's information on their site. And then petersons.com, which I mentioned before, for how you can look up graduate schools. They actually have a scholarships page on there where you can actually look up scholarship opportunities. So I've now talked about researching what type of program, basically how to research graduate programs overall and how to pay for graduate school, how to research that as well. I now want to ask you, what type of graduate program are you interested in completing? Off of what we discussed so far, I'm really curious, what is a graduate program that you're thinking that you might want to complete? And then we'll also ask too, based off of the different resources that I showed you for how to research a graduate program, we'll also, I want to ask you what resource you might try to use to be able to research for graduate school. So why don't you answer some of these different questions that are here? All right. So, so it looks like a majority of the group is thinking about a master's program, and some people are unsure about what program they're thinking about. I like that a lot of people are thinking that they want to use U.S. News World Report grad school rankings. I think that that's a really good option. I think it's also important to don't be afraid to reach out to faculty. Don't be afraid to reach out to a former professor and ask their opinion about graduate school. You might even want to be asking them about a letter of recommendation. But yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to them. And also, you definitely want to consult your professional associations. So look up the field that you want to go into. If there's a professional group for it, they probably have a school directory where they're going to suggest options to you. And petersons.com can be used for a lot of different ways to help you. They can help you with looking up schools, but they can also help you with looking up funding resources. So very good. Thank you for answering that poll. Let's see here. All right, so I'll come back to this to that question too. All right, so so now we've talked about your motivations for graduate school. We've now talked about how to research options for graduate school. And now I want to talk with you a little bit about your application materials. I like to call these the nuts and bolts of the application process because it's pretty standard. There are certain elements that kind of remain the same that you typically need. Sometimes there's a bit of change depending on what type of program you're pursuing, but there are some consistent elements that you need as you prepare for graduate school. And so we're going to go over those right now. So the core application materials that you need. The first one that you're going to need is a resume or a CV. So a resume is a summary of your education, experience, and skills. I think that it's usually 1 or 2 pages, and I think that pretty much anybody can use that as they're applying to graduate school. But some of you may want to consider a CV. And so a CV comes into play more when you're applying to more like a doctoral program. And a CV is meant to include if there's been any, if you've had any presentations, or if you've been a part of any research or publications, anything that's more academic experiences that you would do as an academic, you might include that in a CV. And it can go on any number of pages of CV. But I would say most people that I run into that are applying for a first master's degree or a doctoral degree, it's fine using a resume. You're also going to want to put together a personal statement. So for a number of graduate programs, you're going to be writing a personal statement to each school. So you'll be writing a statement of goals, usually about 2 to 3 pages of why you want to go to this particular graduate school. But if you're in the health professions or if you're in law, there is usually a centralized personal statement that you will send to a variety of different schools. And sometimes the different schools will ask you to send specific essays. So there are situations where you're doing a centralized personal statement, but there are a lot of times you are sending a personal statement to a specific school. And then letters of recommendation. And so this one can sometimes be a challenge, but so you want to, you're going to need some professors as well as some professionals possibly as your letters of recommendation. So you can use professors, but you can also use some professionals. You want to use a mix of both, or lean sometimes a little bit more towards having a professor. But so these are individuals that are going to be endorsing you, saying that you are ready for graduate school. And I would say if you just recently graduated, you can definitely ask some of your former professors. Something that I might encourage you, if you're an alum and it's been a few years since you've been in school, you may even want to consider taking a class non-matriculated. There's a lot of school programs out there where you can just take 1, 2, or even 3 classes just as a student that's not in a program, and then you'll have an experience with a professor, and based off of that experience, you could ask them for an endorsement for a letter of recommendation. So you may even want to consider taking a class non-matriculated, but you could also think about asking a current supervisor, maybe asking somebody that was a former employer that knows about your interest in a certain area of study. So you can consider asking one of them for a letter of recommendation. And then graduate entrance exams. So there are a variety of graduate entrance exams. These are just different tests that sometimes schools want to see to measure how prepared you are for graduate school. The most popular one is the GRE. So a lot of schools might ask for the GRE. There's the LSAT, there's the GMAT for business. And then even in the health professions, there are different types of graduate entrance exams. One thing I want to say right now is that because of the pandemic and how that's kind of affected a lot of things, even in higher education, there are some schools who are waiving graduate entrance exams. And this is why it's so important to make sure that you research. It's so important for you to research what programs you're considering, because you might be interested in a number of programs that aren't even requiring a graduate entrance exam. So if you don't have any schools that are requiring a graduate entrance exam, then you don't have to worry about taking one of those different tests. So, but think about the graduate entrance exams. And then lastly, your transcripts. So even here at Temple University, there is the Office of the Registrar Transcript Services. The Office of the Registrar Transcript Services, you can go to them and they will actually send your academic record at Temple University to any of the schools that you will be applying to graduate school for. So you definitely want to consider making sure that you get your transcripts from your previous institution to send them to schools that you'll be applying to. And I see that we got some questions. I will definitely jump to those as we get to the next survey question. So also sample action plan. So I want to give you all a plan for applying to graduate school. And this would be, let's say that you're going to start next spring, this upcoming spring, 2021, if you want to start applying for graduate school. I would say in the spring, you could start identifying your areas of interest. You want to start with what do I think I want to even study for graduate school? And then early summer, you would want to start researching relevant graduate programs. So you want to start using those different resources I talked about before to start researching programs. You also will want to look to see if any of those programs require a graduate entrance exam. So if you have programs that require you to take a graduate entrance exam, you want to start preparing for those exams early, because that will help you get the best scores. So in the summer, you would start preparing for your graduate entrance exams. Late summer, you start to narrow down your options. And in the beginning of the fall, you would start reaching out to professors or professionals that would be your letters of recommendation. So you'll start to do that around early fall. In mid-fall, you would want to start your applications and take those exams that you need to take. You'll do that in the middle of the fall. And then as you get to the end of the fall, you'll want to send your transcripts and also finish your applications. And I usually finish your applications by November, December, because most graduate programs, unless they're rolling admission, they either start around November, December, and they usually go to January or February of when their application deadlines are. And in showing you this long kind of process, this plan, you know, it's okay if your process is going to be much shorter, but I just want to show you how much time you might want to devote to actually preparing for graduate school. I think the more time you put into it, the better your applications will be, and the more likely it will be that you'll get into a graduate program that you really like. So if you give yourself a little more time, it usually has a better result. But if you need to kind of shorten this process, these are just some of the things that you need to make sure you do as you get ready to apply to graduate school. So I want to ask you a question, and I want to respond to some of the questions that are in the chat. I want to ask you through our poll, what part of the application process, as I've kind of reviewed it, is the most challenging for you right now? What do you feel like I'm going to have to put more effort, more work into preparing this as I get ready for graduate school? So try answering that question, and I'm going to look at what's here in the chat. So someone asks, how many letters of recommendation do you think you should have? It's usually about 2 to 3. It's usually about 2 to 3 letters of recommendation that you need. Sometimes they want an actual letter. Sometimes that person just has to go into your application process and fill out some questionnaires about you. Okay. So someone earlier say that they want to become a college professor. Okay, so definitely good feedback there. And then so it seems like mostly everyone is thinking about their graduate entrance exams. And I think that's good. I think so. What someone asked me one time, like, are people about the graduate entrance exam, if a school is asking for it, some of the most premier schools, the most top schools, will actually still have you complete a graduate entrance exam, because it's one of the ways that they weed out who are the top candidates for that particular program. So usually the more competitive the program, they seem to attach a graduate entrance exam in there regardless. So you'll probably see that. But you want to research and see, are any of the programs that you're thinking about, do they even require a graduate entrance exam? And sometimes that's part of the decision process. If I don't have to take one, then I just won't. And it's because it's more time, it's more effort. You don't have to do that. I'll talk about where you can go for support on writing your personal statement. We have some resources that can help you out with that. And I also see questions about letters of recommendation. Yep, so someone just said, fortunately, the program that they're thinking about doesn't require many graduate entrance exams, and that's fine. It doesn't even mean sometimes that it's not a top program, just some programs aren't requiring them. But other programs use it as a way to weed people out. So now I want to talk about available resources that can help you. So as I was saying at the beginning, graduate school, the application process can be exhausting, it can be demanding. You're writing all these different personal statements. You're just trying to make sure that you're doing everything in the right way. So it's really good to tap into some resources that can support you. And Temple University has so many different resources that are available even to alumni that you can actually take advantage of. So I want to share with you what are some of those resources that are out there. So first off is my office, the Temple University Career Center. And if you're thinking about graduate school but aren't really sure what type of program you want to go into, if you're thinking just kind of how do I research programs that are out there, you can actually come and talk to me or talk to any of the career coaches. There's actually 5 career coaches on our team. You could talk to any one of us and we'll kind of guide you or talk with you and discuss with you what are some good graduate school program options. Where can you research these different graduate schools? How do you know if graduate school is right for you? You can also come to our office if you need a personal statement review. So that's one of our services as well. You can actually have your personal statement reviewed by the Career Center. For those of you that are thinking that you're interested in the health professions, you could also consider the Office of Pre-Professional Health Studies. So there's an office on campus called the Office of Pre-Professional Health Studies. They work with alumni. And if you want to go into any of those areas, medicine, physical therapy, occupational therapy, all the different areas within the health professions, you could go to pre-health advising through the Office of Pre-Professional Health Studies. Because a lot of you were concerned about graduate entrance exams, I really want to make sure that you know about the Office of Non-Credit and Continuing Education. So if you look up the Office of Non-Credit and Continuing Education Test Prep Services, they actually have free workshops on how to prepare for the GRE, for the GMAT, and for the LSAT. So if you go onto their website, you'll see some really good information on there about how to go to one of their free practice strategy sessions. So they'll kind of talk with you about strategies to keep in mind as you are preparing for those exams. They also have some courses that you can take, but you have to pay for those. It's up to you if you want to pursue that. I talked about this office earlier, the Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advising. So they are very helpful if you are thinking about fellowship opportunities, if you're thinking about scholarships, competitive scholarships, they will be able to guide you on how to do a strong application for that. So you can consider the Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advising. And then also there is Student Financial Services. And I have just become more and more aware of the different online resources that they have. But if you go to their website, they actually have information about external scholarships on there. So I really recommend if you're looking for funding, just take a look at some of what they provided as guidance for thinking about paying for graduate school. And then for those of you that are thinking about law school, there is the Temple Pre-Law Society. Just kind of look it up and you'll see that it's a group of individuals who are all thinking about going to law school. It's a way for you to kind of be around others who are thinking the same way about pursuing that type of degree. And there's an advisor with the Pre-Law Society. His name is Paul Crow, and he's excellent, very good to talk to if you're getting ready for the application process for law school. So I really recommend reach out to the Pre-Law Society, reach out to Paul Crow if you are thinking about law school. And there's one other resource that I want to tell you about, and hopefully you're taking advantage of this resource just in general, but this resource can also help you if you're thinking about graduate school. So the OWL Network. If you don't know about the OWL Network is the alumni database at Temple University. It's a way for you to get in touch with other alums that have graduated from Temple programs. And they have a really nice feature on here called networking. So if you go to the networking tab, you can actually do a filtered search and find people who have graduated from any number of advanced degrees. And you can actually see on there if they're willing to talk with you, if they're willing to support you in a particular way. And you could actually reach out to them and ask their opinion, ask their advice. I'm interested in this graduate school program. What advice would you give on how to prepare? What schools would you recommend? Even you could look to see what graduate degrees they've gotten their schools, they've gone to for education. So I definitely would recommend look at the OWL Network. The OWL Network could also be a place for you to find alums that can help you as you prepare for the graduate school process. All right, so I want to do another survey question here. So I've talked about a number of different Temple resources, and I want to hear from you. What Temple resource or resources do you think would be beneficial to you right now if you're in the process of applying to graduate school? So check off which one you think would be most beneficial to you at this point. All right, the Career Center wins. No, I think the Career Center can definitely be a good starting place for you if you're just beginning this process of thinking about how do I apply to graduate programs, what graduate program do I want to go to, your personal statement. I'm happy to see that some others wrote down test prep services. Please take advantage of those free resources that they have over there. They have strategy sessions that you can take advantage of. I'll present the link later for student financial services and the resources that they have available. Barbara Gorka is actually the director of the Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advising. She's excellent, very knowledgeable. I think that you should definitely consider talking with her. And the OWL Network, again, really good place. You might not have thought of it, like to be able to look for alum who have graduated from a graduate program and might be able to offer you some advice. So definitely like these selections that you have here. All right, so we're almost at the point for Q&A, but I want to make sure that I round out our time talking about the Career Center's resources and how you can get in touch with our office. So just a little bit about the Temple University Career Center. Right now, we are taking a 30-minute appointments offered by Zoom or by phone. So you can do a virtual appointment with our office. And I want to tell you a little bit about the services specifically for alumni. So if you are a recent alum, if you just graduated from a Temple program, you actually have unlimited services through the Career Center. You can seek out as many appointments as you would like over the next year. There's all these different resources that we have available, so you can tap into those unlimited resources for the next year. When you become an alum that's 2 years to 5 years out, you get 2 appointments per year. So 2 appointments per year, you can visit the Career Center and receive individual appointments. And then once you go beyond 5 years out, we actually refer most alumni to the professional network, so Temple Professional Network, which is overseen by Tyra Ford. She's the director of the Professional Network. And so there are some individual services that are available through the Temple Professional Network, as well as a number of different events like the one today, as well as other types of programs that will be able to assist you as well. So we also work very much with alumni relations, and I think Tyra Ford would be another person that you can definitely reach out to. But at the Career Center, some of the different services that we have available, so you could get a resume or cover letter review. So as you're getting ready for graduate school, if you need someone to look over your resume, our team can do that. Also, job search strategies, you could reach out to us for that. interview practice for any types of opportunity, even for graduate school. If you have an interview coming up, you could actually talk with our team to support you. Career exploration, also LinkedIn. If you need to update your LinkedIn profile, you can talk with us. But again, you can definitely talk to our team about applying to graduate school, about your personal statement. If you need someone to look over your personal statement, our team can support you with that. And then you can get to a lot of this information by just going to our website, but I also have some other links that I'll show you here. So for everyone that is on this call, as well as those that will be viewing the recording, you can reach out to me. I am open to talking to students and alumni about the graduate school process. Feel free to send me an email and I will try to direct you to the appropriate place. But we also have Handshake at Temple University. So Handshake is the university's job and internship platform. That is the main place that you can go for booking appointments with a career center staff member. You can go there to look at different events that are going to be happening in the next couple of weeks or the semester. So you can go there for events, and then you can also go there to look up internship and job opportunities. So I would definitely recommend looking at Handshake, creating an account if you don't have one already, and you can see a lot of really great services and resources on there. Feel free to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Temple Careers. We have a lot of information that we put on there, different events that are going to be coming up. We'll actually share information that way. And then again, if you go to our website or call our office line, you should be able to get more information or support from the Career Center specifically. So this is some ways that you can stay in contact with us. Feel free to send me an email and I'll try to direct you to the appropriate place, or go to Handshake. I think Handshake is also really helpful for setting up an appointment time with our team. And then, so this is what you all be receiving through the email that will be sent out later. I have all the different links that I've kind of been going over, the Temple resources. So a variety of different resources here that you can actually take advantage of following this presentation. So wanted to have these here. And what we want to do now, since we've got about 10 minutes, want to open it up for Q&A. If there are any kind of specific questions about the graduate school process. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Mark. That was a great comprehensive overview of what it's like to apply to grad school. But we do have some individuals who've supplied some questions. So for those of you still on the call who may have questions, there's still time to add them in the chat or the Q&A box. But Mark, there's some questions around GPA. So one individual asks, does GPA hold the same weight going from one discipline to another? So they're considering going from engineering and getting an MBA.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, that can depend so much by the field and how they look at GPA. I know that within the sciences, GPA can be really important. The fact that you brought up MBA, I believe that GPA can have some weight. They'll look at that to maybe see how you will do in the coursework. I also know that the GMAT, or and sometimes you can take the GRE. I know that also is something that is considered very much as well. So your score on the GMAT could also really help out. And then also with MBA programs, I believe that they care a lot about experience. They actually like to see someone who has worked for a little while before going back for one of those degrees. And Katie, feel free to share also if you would like too. But so I would say, do you see that there's a variety of things that they'll probably consider as they're trying to pick an applicant? So I think that your GPA could matter a little bit, but I think you could easily offset that in a positive way with a good GMAT score and with some good work experience. If they see that, they might see, well, this person has very clear goals. This is how that degree would complement what they've done in the past, and they might be willing to take that person.
Great, thank you. And there's another question around GPA that's just general. It's a comment really that they're concerned about their GPA, and there's no really context around maybe a degree path. Would you give them the same kind of advice that you just shared?
Yeah, I actually want to give this advice because I actually think it can be very helpful, and you can do it at Temple University. I should have brought this resource up too. There's an Office of Continuing Studies. So at Temple University, I think it's in the Academic Resource Center. There is an office, there's a small group called Continuing Studies, and they can help you if you want to take a class non-matriculated. One of the things that you can do if your GPA is not very high and you want to show that you are ready for graduate school is to take a few classes, not in an actual program, but just as a non-matriculated student. And then you can show, hey, I took a graduate level course and I did really well. I would be prepared for graduate school. So I think that that's one thing to definitely think about doing is, you don't have to go immediately into a graduate program. You could do a non-matriculated class, but please also look at the school's websites. Look at the admissions site. They might tell you what they're looking for in terms of GPA. You can also ask an admissions officer. Sometimes they're very forthright in telling you about what your chances are depending on a GPA. So definitely look at the schools and ask them, but think about taking maybe even a non-matriculated class if you want to show that you've progressed even after your undergraduate degree.
Great, thank you. And when we think about motivations when applying to grad school, I know we talked a little bit about like identifying, those champions for you to help identify maybe some programs. But when you're thinking about motivations from the early start, who would you suggest maybe they talk to kind of, or other resources to kind of think through some of their motivations to even start the process?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question too. I mean, I think that, it sounds cheesy to say it, but I do feel that some of the desire for graduate school comes from within. I think that you have a desire to learn more. You have a desire for a certain career path that you want to be in, and you think that this graduate degree is going to help you to achieve that. But you could also consider mentors. If you have any mentors in your place of work, mentors from a previous program that you've been a part of, maybe talking with them, talking to someone that you know who's doing the work that you one day want to do. If you talk to one of those individuals, maybe they can help consult you or guide you on what best to do. But lastly, I'll recommend our office again and say, I think, we have a lot of really great counselors on our team that can really help you with kind of talking through your interests, talking through your future goals. And so you can meet with one of us and we can talk with you about what do you want to do right now in terms of your career path. But I mean, hopefully you're sensing that desire that you want to go to graduate school. I think that's definitely valid. You want to consider that. And yeah, hopefully even through the OWL network, those different resources that are there, you can find out through talking to others what might be the path that you might want to pursue.
Great, thank you. There's another question around some of the non-matriculated classes that you mentioned. What type of classes should someone look into taking, maybe such as for an MBA?
Okay, yeah. So if you're interested in business and an MBA, yes, you would want to consider maybe taking a business course. So there might be some courses, we'll see. There might be some courses that might even fall under a specialized master's in business that still would be something that an MBA would take. And so you could look and see if there is a course that aligns even within like a specialized business master's that you might be able to take. But so when it comes to non-matriculated classes, you want to take a class that is closely related to the field that you want to go into. So I would definitely say through talking to continuing studies here at Temple, or looking at other types of programs that are out there, just see is there a class that you can take without being part of the program that's in the field that you want to go into. Because if it's closely related, that's what the graduate school and the admissions are looking for. They want to see you've taken a course that you would probably take in this program and you've proven yourself. So make it as closely related to the field as possible.
And would prerequisites like fall into that? Like if you are maybe switching careers and haven't had a certain course, would you suggest that for a non-matriculated class to kind of start the process?
That is a really good question. So prerequisites, there are certain fields that are pretty serious about what those prerequisites are going to be. And that's why all of this kind of starts with, you want to do your research on what programs you're interested in. Go to those program pages where they're explaining the requirements for that particular program, and they might tell you if they have prerequisites. So if they are listing a lot of different prerequisites, you want to make sure that you've completed those or in the process of completing those so that you would be ready for the application process. Sometimes it's more difficult if you're coming from a very different field, but I want to reiterate this too. Don't be afraid to talk to admissions counselors. They are actually there to help you and they want to see you be successful. So you can email the admissions team and say, this is my situation, any advice for me? But yes, definitely go to their pages and look at what those prerequisites might be.
Great. And, you know, we talked about identifying those individuals that could recommend, they could write recommendations for individuals looking to apply to grad school. What's the best way to go about asking those individuals? Is there like a preferred timeline? How far advance should you ask? And is there suggested templates that you can share so that, you know, they're helping the process along?
I believe if you go to the Career Center website, there is a section under resume and communication where we actually talk about just kind of emails and how to reach out to people. And even as I was going over that sample plan, I think that there was around, like if you were starting in the spring and working around to that next fall, that it was around like mid-fall. So I would say a couple of months before your deadline, you want to reach out to the faculty or the professionals that are going to be helping you out with the letters of recommendation. So you want to do it a couple of months in advance. I'm even thinking for a professor, there's nothing wrong with reaching out to them at the end of the summer or like over winter break, just a time where they might not be very deep within, you know, preparing for different classes would be a time. And I think you can just do a nice email where you say, hi, Professor so-and-so, you know, I really enjoyed this class that I took with you, however long ago that was. I wanted to let you know that I'm thinking about going to graduate school. And I think that you would be a really great letter of recommendation for me. It would be much appreciated if you could maybe share about my experiences within your class and how I performed. This is the programs that I'm thinking about, and I can be in touch with you about when I would need information in terms of applying to, in terms of writing these letters of recommendation. So you want to I usually tell people, give them some context. If a professor hasn't seen you in a while, you need to kind of like remind them of where they know you from. So I usually do that in the beginning of a message. You let them know specifically what programs you're going to be applying for, and then you can let them know what you need from them. So you want them to talk about what do you want them to bring up about you in the letter of recommendation or as they're completing those different prompts. What would you want them to say? So I think give some context, tell them what you're applying for, and then also tell them what you want them to say. And you want to try to do that a couple of months in advance. You don't want to make it last minute. I'll even say, yeah, I've definitely seen some situations where people have reached out to professors very last minute and they're hunting down the professor to try to get them to finish the letter recommendation for the deadline. So everything is better earlier rather than later.
Great, thank you. And we have two final questions for you, Mark. So do you have to have a master's degree before gaining a doctorate, such as going for a medical degree and not having a bachelor's or a master's in pre-med?
Yes, from my understanding for medicine, you would not need to have a master's degree beforehand. I think I've seen people who maybe their scores at the undergraduate level wasn't great, and then they pursued another type of master's degree for more experience, and then they went for a doctoral degree within medicine. I would say in other fields, like so for a PhD, it's possible that you don't have a master's before and that you apply to this PhD program and you pick up a master's along the way. Part of your coursework would be to pick up the master's along the way, and then you would get to that dissertation process towards the end. For example, I'm actually finishing up my EDD, and for that, many people have a master's, pretty much have to have a master's degree beforehand, and then you go for this doctoral degree. So it can change depending on some of the fields. Medicine, I would say you're just doing all that together. You're just pursuing a doctoral degree there. Same thing with like physical therapy. But for PhDs, you might complete the master's along the way, or sometimes people come in with a master's degree and then they do their PhD.
Great. And so for our final question, should non-matriculated classes only be taken at the institution you attend to apply to grad school?
I would say it doesn't have to be. but I think it can help. And one of the things that it helps with is that, like, you might end up taking a course with someone who's a faculty member that you might end up seeing later within the program, and then they've gotten an experience with you, and then now they're like saying this is going to be a good candidate, and that might help out with your application process. So I think that it doesn't have to be, but it can help if you do try to target it towards you taking a non-matriculated class with the program that you intend to get into.
Great. And that wraps up our Q&A portion. So, Mark, I wanted to thank you again for sharing all of this great information and resources with us today. As a reminder for those still on the call, today's session was recorded and will be emailed to you afterwards, pretty shortly. And know that you can visit alumni.temple.edu to view upcoming events and all the resources available to you now as an alum. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Mark, Alumni and Constituent Engagement, or any of the offices Mark shared for additional support. Thank you again for joining us, and best of luck with your grad school journey. We hope to see you soon.